I hope you fail. Now, I don't want you to fail entirely, but I do want you to fail fast, because that's how you learn and improve. Here's how to do it in a way that's easy, that's cheap, and leads to making a lot of money. The process is simple. Come up with an idea, test it, review the results, then move on to the next idea with new insights. That's the basic theory, but here's the depth to this process. I'm definitely pro fail fast. Now, that does not mean that you make gut level decisions. It needs to be driven by data, but you need to figure out that data quickly, because if you are taking too much time, you're risking the entire thing crumbling down, or a competitor coming in, or an economic event, or a key employee just figuring that they're bored at some point and leaving at a point that is really going to be a company compromising event. So I'm definitely a proponent of fail fast, so long as you understand what failure is and what failure isn't. Failure isn't, oh, this campaign didn't work, so the entire business idea is bad. Well, no, maybe you just ran a campaign. Maybe you don't know what you're doing. Maybe you haven't figured out how to truly test things. The important thing is to understand when is enough, and then when to call it and say, okay, I'm done testing this thing. And if you haven't figured that piece out, you're going to either spend too much or too little. You're going to spend too little and not get enough information, or you're going to spend too much and take too much time, and then you could be moving on to the next opportunity or the next campaign or the next thing that you're testing. So it's finding that Goldilocks zone of what is the ideal amount to do that, and then looking at yourself and saying, okay, I'm going to invest, I'm just going to pick some numbers here, I'm going to invest 90 days and $50,000 on trying this. You also have to think in your head, there's an opportunity cost. It's not just the $50,000, it's the 90 days. And as things are moving faster, things are accelerating, what else can I try in that 90 days that might give me a better chance of success? So I do this all the time when I'm looking at, okay, what are all of the experiments that I could run in either a business model or a campaign or a operating system in the business? What can I try that's going to give me the biggest result, and weighing that against how long it's going to take? And then you can make an informed decision about what to try. But what too many folks do is they just come up with an idea, they get very excited about something. They hear it somewhere, they have an idea, they see something on YouTube, they've heard someone else talking about an opportunity that went well for them, they get very all hot and bothered about it, and then they run down this path, not having measured it against the other opportunities and handicapping those opportunities. So they run down this path, and then they're trying something, and they haven't thought from the beginning, okay, what will make this a decision of go, no go? And how much should I invest to get to that decision? And then at this juncture, once I've made that decision, what's the next thing that I do? Instead, they just show up, pick something, and do, and they're just losing time when they could have more at-bats and have better success, upping their odds by determining these things don't work early on, and it's really going to impact their ultimate speed to result. Balancing decision-making with speed. How much data do you need to make a decision, and how quickly you want to go? You know you want to go quickly because you never know what's going to happen in the company. Things could explode, the economy could go bad, not have customers. So you want to move quickly, but then you're kind of doing this analysis paralysis, and I need to get more data. I need statistical significance, right? Very often people say, okay, I'm going to test this to significance. I'm going to test this until I have a 90-something% chance of this being right. I don't agree with that. The reason I don't agree with that is because the whole statistical significance concept that comes from pure science, where you're testing something, and statistics and pure science, you're testing something and you need a repeatable result every single time. And that absolutely makes sense. If you're doing drug trials, you need a repeatable result because it's going to be rolled out to millions of people, and each one of those people in their bodies, it's going to do something, and you need a repeatable result. Business is not like that. You have constant changing conditions on the ground. So if I ran an experiment in a business now, and then I run the same experiment a year later, I might get different results because the conditions have changed. So if I wait long enough to get statistical significance, am I really gaining anything versus getting something that's more or less directional that says it is likely that this will work, and then deciding, okay, given that likelihood of it working, how much do I invest? Instead of saying, I'm going to run this to the ground, I'm going to be 100% accurate about this. And that's very much the scientist model of this. And I love scientific thinking. It is the underpinning of growing in a deterministic way and making sure that you are making good decisions. However, if you go too far down that road, it does not account for how business really works. So what you need to ask yourself is, how much data is enough for how much I'm going to invest? So if you're gathering data and you're going to spend 10 grand, maybe it's just not a big deal. Get some indicators of direction and decide, I'm okay with 60% likelihood that that's going to go in a certain direction, because that's pretty good, right? 60% odds on $10,000 investment to maybe get X back. Maybe you decide, hey, that's a good gamble. If you're going for something, I'm going to put $1 million into this. Okay, maybe I want more than 60%. Maybe I want 75, maybe I want, 80% on that. But you're deciding always based on how much you're going to invest and then what the potential outcome is, instead of saying every single time, I need to have certainty, because that need for certainty is going to cause you to just get paralyzed and you're not going to make a decision. And then conditions will change. And then all that time and money you spent trying to test the thing will be worthless. I do make gut decisions when the stakes are low. So sometimes I need to make a decision very quickly and you can't help it. You can't gather data. And that's just entrepreneurship. And you need to make a decision. So for instance, maybe you're negotiating an agreement with some partner and you're thrown a loop and they're trying to change the economics of the deal on you. They're going to change what they're licensing to you. They're going to change a term of the deal. You don't have time to run an experiment. So that's when you're playing chess. And in your head, you're going to have to think, okay, well, if this happens, then what are the consequences, et cetera. So you do have to make a gut decision. I mean, it helps to stop in my case, highly visual. I whiteboard the thing out or I'll sketch something out, but I'm making a gut decision. That does happen because I don't have the time, or in some cases, you don't have the money to test something like super early on in business. Let's say that, my e-commerce business, I started it, I invested all of $500 in starting that business because my rule for that business, which has stayed true for 2.5, almost 3 years now, is I will put no money other than the initial $500 into it. So with that rule, I said, okay, well, this is how much I can do. And so sometimes there isn't money to test because I'm not going to invest any more in there. It has to live off of cash flow. So in those circumstances, yes, because you're constrained in decision making. So there is a place for gut. I'm not saying that everything has to be completely and utterly clinical. However, thinking that you can use gut all of the time is really bad thinking, because people are bad handicappers of odds. They're just really bad at it. And even someone like me who runs experiments literally every single week, I can't predict the results a lot of the time. But if you get into that mindset of, I'm first going to think, can I validate this? And then if the answer is, well, I can't because, then you can make that quick check and say, okay, well, am I going to go on gut, or should I just not even make this decision right now because it's too big a consequence to not have some information? So there's a place for gut, but check it before you just use it. Yeah, there's this concept of the unstoppable entrepreneur, right? We see these media stories and we see Elon Musk, whose companies each were near death at some point, and then through some heroic measure, it gets saved, partially because he's brilliant and uses brute force of his personality to do that. Or you hear how Amazon was essentially in the garbage bin at, $1 a share, and now it's something huge. And we see these stories and we see the big bets that entrepreneurs made. And it biases us to think that that's how good decisions are made, that the good decision is a swing for the fence all the time. But the reason we're hearing that is because that's a good story, not because that's how we should act normally. It's more like if you've got someone who's really good at playing poker, that's how you can think. What are they doing? They're looking at their hand all the time and they're calculating, what should I do based on the information that I have now? Should I go all in? How much should I put in? How much should I raise? When you start to think that way, that's more similar to how to be successful at entrepreneurship than is I'm taking a big bet. Because the whole concept of have my gut, I took a big bet. The big bet, a lot of those big bets, the ones that failed, you never hear about them. But that could be the 99% case. You just see the few that went through. And those few news articles that you went through didn't really show you how the decision was made, just that a bet was made. On the other hand, if you think of this as an ongoing poker game in which you have limited information and what you're trying to do is best handicap, do I make an investment or not, or make a bet or not in something, that's a better way of thinking about it. Hard work and gut feelings will only take you so far. You need data to build a successful business. That's how the biggest companies grow, and you can do it too if you know the process. My next video right here shows you exactly how to use data and not your gut to scale your business. Go here next.